So, as we sit and reflect on another October and another Halloween come to pass, I thought about something. I've never really made my argument for why I think that Michael Myers is the king. So, here's my argument for why Michael Myers is the king. Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Nick here at the Lost River Drive-In, and tonight I wanted to talk about why Michael Myers is the king. Now, it's been a week or so since Halloween, and I've kind of been in the dumps. I know a lot of you guys have too. We can't help it. We know that that time of year comes and goes every year without fail. There's nothing we can do. It's unavoidable. It's going to pass. And it sucks because while we're in it, it's awesome. And we are always telling ourselves that we feel like, oh, we can't skimp on this. We can't forget to do this. Like, we need to live it up. And we always feel like after it's come and gone that there were things we didn't do. And it's been like that every year for me. And I'm sure it's like that for you guys too. I took a couple days to really think about what I wanted to say in this video because obviously, as you guys know, I am a Halloween guy. It's how I started my channel years and years ago, just as a kid, uploading my DVDs of the Halloween movies and talking about how they're awesome and that anybody disagrees, is wrong. And, now as an adult reflecting back on that time half a lifetime ago, I just realized that I never really have made my case for why I think that Michael Myers is absolutely the king of slashers. So part of this will be me kind of getting into what it means to me, and then part of it will be me making the case for why Michael Myers is the king. So I guess sit back, relax, grab a drink, because this might be a long one. So first off, I'll get out the reasons why I think that Michael Myers is the king. It is true that in the 1980s, that decade was ruled by Freddy and Jason. It cannot be denied. Halloween had a misfire with Halloween 3 Season of the Witch. Even though a lot of us liked that movie, it was not popular back when it came out in 82 because it wasn't Michael Myers. It pissed a lot of people off, and Michael went away for over half a decade. And he didn't come back until the end of the decade. Well, during that time, Freddy and Jason were pumping out sequels damn near every year, making tens of millions of dollars. Freddy was the guy on MTV, and it was just like one of those things where Michael was almost an afterthought. Halloween 4 came out, and it was #1 at the box office, but the movie didn't even make $20 million. So it's not like it was even touching the heights of Nightmare or Friday. It just wasn't. It was a good return for Halloween, but it wasn't huge, and Freddy and Jason still owned that decade. And then you get into the 90s, and Freddy was still pretty much going strong, Freddy's Dead, marketed as the final one, did pretty well at the box office. Even Dream Child did pretty well comparatively to what Halloween had been doing in recent years. And Friday was in a weird spot, that's not long after New Line or before New Line got the rights to the series. They tried some new things. None of those movies really took off. So really, Freddy was kind of in his last gasp, and Michael was DOA still, and Jason was, kind of gasping for air. Then you got into the 2000s, and that's when everything changed. Because Michael started this entire thing in the 70s with 1978's Halloween. Without Halloween, you would not have a Nightmare on Elm Street. You would not have Friday the 13th. You would not have a lot of movies. That's not necessarily all to Halloween's credit, though. While it is cool and Halloween did come first out of the big three and it directly influenced the other two, those types of movies might have been made by somebody else eventually anyway. Halloween didn't need to be the catalyst. It just happened to be the catalyst. But Michael started it all. So when you go back and you look at Friday and you look at Nightmare, you couldn't help but think about the original Halloween. That was like the granddaddy, right? Yeah, sure, we had Psycho, we had Peeping Tom, we had Black Christmas, but this was really when the era was ushered in, was 1978. And then in the 2000s, or I'd say late 90s, Halloween H2O comes out, and it's a pretty big hit. Brings Jamie Lee back, brings Halloween back to respectability. Whereas Freddy and Jason were pretty much dead at that point. Their franchises were either done making movies for the time being or they weren't making any money. Halloween was at the forefront again. Even Halloween Resurrection, which got just absolutely trashed, made over $30 million. Michael was kind of at the forefront again. Freddy vs. Jason comes out, and that's a huge hit. But then nothing from either franchise. And then Michael resurfaces in the late 2000s with Rob Zombie's movies and completely takes center stage again. And just like in 1978, Michael ushered in the era. Halloween 2007 comes out, makes almost $80 million worldwide. And then next thing you know, a couple years later, Friday gets a reboot. And then Nightmare gets a reboot. And it was all ushered in by Halloween again. Well, as we know over the last decade or so, there's been nothing to speak of with Friday the 13th and A Nightmare on Elm Street. Absolutely nothing. Part of that is not the characters and the property's fault. A lot of that is rights issues, but also the studios that own parts of those rights not really feeling any need to make a new movie, which is a shame because it's the big three for a reason. Yeah, Michael's popular. People love Michael, but people love Jason too. People love Freddy too. Where are they? You've seen horror have this massive resurgence lately. It's been going on for years now. I don't think it's something that's ever going to go away. It may dwindle a little bit, but horror just keeps making money because you keep the budgets down, and comparatively, with the money you make, it's pretty good, and you can fund 2-3 more sequels. So it's kind of a bummer to see what has happened to Friday and Nightmare. But in that time, Michael came roaring back with Blumhouse's trilogy, a trilogy that amassed $500 million at the box office. Now, if you would have told me 10 years ago that a new Halloween trilogy would make $500 million at the box office, I would have laughed in your face. Rob Zombie's Halloween at that point was the high watermark in unadjusted dollars for the franchise, the original being obviously the one. And looking at that, around 80 million, I thought Halloween 2018 could be big. I didn't think $250 million big. And then even with the diminishing returns for the following sequels, you're still talking over $100 million for each for R-rated slasher movies to a property that's almost 50 years old. That's pretty freaking cool. Halloween took center stage because nobody else was willing to challenge Myers. It wasn't that they were afraid. No, the market is hot right now. It just didn't happen. New Line, whoever, Paramount, whoever you want to blame for this. Sean S. Cunningham, Victor Miller, nobody did anything. They just sat on their hands and are watching one of the most lucrative times to be a horror film and a studio that puts out a horror film go by and do nothing about it. And in that time, Michael has reintroduced himself to an entirely new generation of teenagers and young adults and kids. My son knows who he is. He's not even 4 years old. You're seeing a resurgence of Michael Myers decorations around Halloween. I saw so many taking my son trick-or-treating. They know who this guy is again. Everybody's talking about him. The movies are everywhere. You can't get away from it. They're breaking records when they come out. They're breaking streaming records when they go on Peacock. That's a big deal. So, yeah, I think that Myers is the king simply because, as of right now, no one's challenging him. But even furthermore, do I think that if Friday the 13th came out tomorrow with a new movie that it would make $250 million worldwide? No, absolutely not. Do I think A Nightmare on Elm Street could do that? No, absolutely not. The only way Nightmare maybe could is if it was a requel with Robert and Heather. That's the only way. See, part of the secret sauce to Halloween 2018 was Jamie Lee Curtis. Let's be honest here. And John Carpenter being back on board, although just as an executive producer, but also doing the score and kind of just being a sequel to the original film. It was almost like you could bring in your grandma, your mom, and your teenage kids. It was marketable to everybody. I think Myers is the king because he just shows the staying power. He doesn't go anywhere. Halloween Ends comes out, makes over $100 million, fractures the fan base, absolutely, but is successful for what it is and is labeled as the end. And a year later, there's a bidding war and a new company gets the property. Well, I guess old company gets the property again, Miramax, and they go, okay, now we're coming back again with more Halloween. Why is that? Well, because they know what they have on their hands. They have a cash cow. They have a guaranteed moneymaker. They have something that people adore and something that, as of right now, is one of the most popular horror properties, period. Michael is not only the king because he came first, not just because his movies have been the most successful in box office dollars combined, not just because the latest trilogy was a huge success, but because no one is challenging him. As much as I love Myers and I love Halloween, I can't argue. I mean, you almost can't argue that. There is no challenger. Nobody has stepped up to the plate. They have laid dormant while Michael has run roughshod on the industry. And I love that because he's the king. Now, some of the quantifiable factors that you have, the arguments that you can make saying, no, he is objectively the king, like I said, longevity, coming first, box office, sure, but I'm still not jaded enough to say that this is an objective point. It's still subjective. Somebody that loves another one of these franchises could make many bullet point reasons why they think that Freddy or Jason is the king. And I feel like to them and to many others, they'd have a good argument, and you could argue, but what's the point? It's subjectivity at the end of the day. My buddy Christian will tell you that Freddy is the king, and he'll have a million different reasons why, and all of his reasons will make sense. And it's not going to change your mind if you don't agree, but that's kind of the thing we have to remember here, is that it's all opinion. There are factors that you can use to say, well, see, technically, statistics. Yeah, but it's still a matter of taste. Having said all of that, I do think Myers is the king. I think he's been the king for a long time, and I think he's going to remain the king until somebody wants to try to challenge the dude. And believe me, I welcome all challengers because I want to see Freddy and Jason back on the big screen again. We have been owed that for so long. We as horror fans, especially what we've had to put up with in both of those franchises, just nothing. Absolutely nothing. Not even news. You got the announcement of Crystal Lake last year. Who knows what's going to happen there, how much of a Friday the 13th series it's actually going to be because of the rights issues. And then Nightmare, who knows? They won't even put out 4Ks. So, don't get your hopes up. Now, in the second part, I really just wanted to talk about why I love Halloween so much and what it means to me and why it means so much to me. Halloween was a movie that I saw at a very impressionable age. It was very young. My mom showed it to me because my mother was just a terrible mother that showed us a bunch of horror movies at really young ages. I saw The Exorcist probably before I could form truly complete sentences. And that movie absolutely terrified me. Halloween's my favorite horror movie of all time. But I won't say it's the best. I think the greatest horror film of all time is The Exorcist. And I think I'm always going to say that. But Halloween is my favorite. I just remember there was something about it. Being a kid in the Midwest and growing up in that kind of area or in that environment, growing up in a household from my mom and others that really appreciated these movies and almost kind of normalized them for me. It's nostalgia. It's remembering what it was like the first time you saw it. It was remembering what that mask meant to you, what it did to you. Those characters, though, that was really the thing. And I think that's the thing that has always made Halloween for me stand above the other franchises. There are some great characters in every one of these franchises, absolutely. But I think Halloween has the quality and the quantity. They have the best and the most good characters. That's a weird way of saying that, but you have, whether it's Laurie Strode, whether it's Dr. Loomis, whether it's Sheriff Brackett, whether it's, go down the list, Rachel, Tina, Jamie, again, go down the list, Tommy Doyle, Paul Rudd specifically. There's a lot of really good characters in this series. You get a lot of characterization, development, arcs. You get to follow them a lot of times through multiple movies and see them change and see them grow. And I think that that really brings you into the series as well, when you have characters that you can attach to, that you care about their fate, you care about their plight, and you're rooting for them. Even if sometimes you're rooting for them to die, you're rooting. I mean, and a movie eliciting that kind of reaction is what we all want. Halloween just kind of rocked my world at a young age because I was frightened, but I was just mystified too. This is a character with no personality almost. He doesn't talk. You see his face clearly one time. He doesn't, he's not clumsy. He's not stupid. He's very matter of fact. He's very driven by the motivation to kill. He's, as Busta Rhymes would say, a killer shark. Gets his kicks off of killing anything and everything that comes in his path. And that's just who he is. He's the embodiment of evil. I think that what Loomis, the monologue, one of the many monologues of the first movie that he has about Michael, really resonates with you because it really makes you look at that character and go, that's not a person. Yeah, it's a person's body, but there's something else in there that's not human. And you don't get a peek behind that curtain. You don't get a one-liner or a moment of weakness. No, it's just a soulless killing machine. It's almost like you can hardly call it a he. Halloween, specifically the first movie, hammered that point home so well that so many movies have tried to imitate, and they just cannot recapture that. And maybe that's a good thing. That's part of the beauty of Halloween. It's almost not meant to be recaptured. It's almost not meant for everyone to be able to just easily obtain what Halloween did. And I love that. It's also what drew me in all those years ago and what keeps me coming back. As a teenager, as a young adult, you go through loss. You go through heartache. You go through hardship, financially, emotionally, whatever it may be. You have days where you're at your lowest. And what do you find solace in? Movies. Specifically movies that make you feel. Movies that transport you to a different time. When things were easier. Things were simpler. Life wasn't so loud. That's what Halloween is to me. That's what Halloween always has been to me and will always be to me. And I know for a lot of you guys, it's the same thing. So I guess the whole point of this video is to say, not only is Michael Myers the king, but even if you don't agree, he's the king to me. Because I've always been able to rely on these movies. I've always been able to get enjoyment out of these movies and these stories and these characters. And that's something that nothing in life, no matter what may come, can ever take away. Just can't. It's always going to be there. So I want to know what you guys think. Do you think Myers is the king? Do you not think Myers is the king? Comment down below. Let me know. Tell me below what Halloween means to you. If you are a Halloween diehard, what does it mean to you? What does it mean to know that we're going on 50 years and the franchise is still going strong, stronger than ever before? Tell me down below. I want to know. Anything, everything, down below in the comment section is always fair game. Please leave a like on this video, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and this is Nick at the Lost River Drive-In, and I'm pulling out.